The sun was slowly sinking below the horizon, painting the sky over Tokyo in deep shades of crimson and gold. Akira, a fourth-year university student, was sitting in his small apartment, where piles of books and empty noodle cups created an atmosphere of creative chaos. However, today he wasn't focused on his studies. His gaze was fixed on his smartphone screen, where he was scrolling through his news feed, searching for something to distract him from the lingering feeling of loneliness that had haunted him since his recent breakup with Miho. His fingers slid across the screen, and suddenly his attention was caught by an incoming message from an unknown contact. The profile picture, instead of a normal photo, was an image that would send a shiver down even the most composed person's spine. A distorted, almost bird-like face with huge, bulging black eyes that reflected no light, and an unnaturally wide smile stretched to its ears. The contact name was short and chilling. Momo is waiting. Answer the call. Akira had heard about this urban legend, the Momo challenge. Teenagers all over the world allegedly received messages from this creepy character who would coerce them into performing dangerous tasks, threatening to expose their secrets or harm them if they refused. For the most part, it was considered a hoax, nothing more than a bad joke created by hackers or just bored trolls. But that image, that look, something about it felt disturbingly real. With a skeptical scoff, Akira typed a message in response. Is this some kind of prank? The answer came instantly. Does it matter, Akira? The game has already begun. Akira's heart skipped a beat. He had never given this contact his name. How do you know? He whispered, but he didn't dare send the message. Instead, he wrote, Who are you? There was no reply. For the next few minutes, the phone screen remained dark, and Akira almost convinced himself that it was just a random glitch. But then a new message arrived. It contained no text. It was a photograph. The picture showed his desk, cluttered with books. The corner of his writing table was visible in the shot, and most horrifyingly, in the shadows at the very edge of the frame, a barely discernible figure stood. It was tall and thin, with long disheveled hair and something that resembled a blood-soaked white cloth wrapped around its legs. Akira sharply raised his head, scanning his room. Nothing. Only books and cups. He stood up and walked to his desk, checking every corner. The photo could only have been taken from over his shoulder. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Was this photo taken right here, right now? The message with the photo was followed by new text. I'm here, Akira. I see your loneliness. A shiver ran down his body. He felt that something was watching him. He quickly blocked the contact, but a few seconds later, a message came back, from the same number. You can't run from me. I am your shadow. The next message was a voice file. Akira put the phone to his ear. At first, he only heard background noise, like the rustling of leaves, but then a hoarse, croaking sound filled his ear, making his heart pound. The sound was not human. It was a sound full of sorrow and rage. It was followed by a barely audible, childlike cry, so quiet and piercing that it took Akira's breath away. At that moment his phone vibrated, and a call came in. The image of Momo appeared on the screen again. Unable to look away, he answered. There was nothing in the speaker but that terrible croaking and crying. But then a voice came, quiet and distorted, as if speaking from underwater. Find me, Akira. I am looking for my child. Help me, or you too will lose what is dear to you. Akira threw the phone, and it hit the wall with a loud thud, the screen going dark. He stood in the middle of the room, breathing heavily, trying to convince himself that this was just someone's sick joke. But his mind, like his heart, refused to believe it. It was too real, too personal, and too frightening. He remembered Miho and their last argument. You never pay attention to me, she had yelled. It's like you live in your own world. He had indeed been engrossed in his own thoughts, his studies, his future. Too busy to notice her. Was there a connection? It seemed far-fetched, but for some reason he felt that Momo knew about his guilt. He slowly bent down and picked up the phone. The screen was shattered, but a single message was still lit up on it. It was the last one. You abandoned me. You abandoned her. You abandoned my child. For this you will pay. A stunned Akira sat on the floor, staring at the shattered screen of his phone. The last message, still glowing on the cracked glass, seemed to burn not just the words into his mind, but a chilling sense of guilt. You abandoned me. You abandoned her. You abandoned my child. He didn't understand what it meant, but each phrase resonated in his soul with a heavy, leaden echo. He slowly rose, his hands shaking as he poured himself a glass of water. His rational mind demanded a logical explanation. It was a skilled hacker, a psychopath who had somehow breached his personal data. But his heart refused to accept it. How could a hacker take a photo of his room? How could they know about Miho? And where did that chilling, hair-raising voice come from? The night, which had felt cozy just hours ago, had turned into a sinister nightmare. Akira decided he needed a distraction. He turned on his laptop and logged into his favorite online game. But even there, amidst the familiar sounds of battle, he felt like an outsider. He saw the distorted figure of Momo lurking around every virtual corner. He shut the game off. Maybe Miho was right? Maybe he was too absorbed in his own world, his own isolation? He dialed her number. It rang and rang. She didn't answer. He tried again. Silence. Finally, he sent her a message, apologizing for his behavior and asking to meet. The reply came instantly, but it wasn't from Miho. It was from a new contact with the name, the oath, and that same terrifying photo of Momo. Your Miho is busy. She's talking to our child, the message read. Akira's heart plummeted into an abyss. He blocked the contact. But as soon as he did, his laptop started making strange static noises. A website opened on its own, displaying a single image, the same photo of Momo. Below it was a phrase written in an old Japanese font, Ubumē. A cold chill ran down Akira's spine. He knew that word. In his first year of university, he had read about it in an elective on Japanese folklore. Ubumē was the ghost of a woman who died in childbirth, wandering in search of her child. It was the very same ancient myth Miho had told him about. Was Momo an Ubumē? His laptop made a piercing sound, and a new message appeared on the screen, superimposed over Momo's image. Your task is to bring her to me, Miho, so she can see what true pain is. Terror seized him. Now Momo didn't just want to play with him. She wanted to use him to get to Miho. Just then he heard a soft knock at his door. He froze. No one was supposed to be there at this hour. The knock repeated, but this time it wasn't on wood, it was on glass. Akira slowly walked to the window and pulled back the curtains. No one was outside, but on the glass, directly in front of his face, was a small handprint, as if a child had pressed against the pane from inside. The print was bloody. Akira recoiled, stumbled, and fell. He heard a child's cry, the same one from Momo's voice note. It came from everywhere, from behind the walls, from beneath the floor, from the hallway. It was quiet, barely audible, and all the more horrifying for it. The crying quickly morphed into a hoarse, croaking murmur, like the one he had heard on the phone. Then came a scratching sound, as if something was dragging long fingernails across wood. The sound was coming from his closet. With trembling hands, Akira backed towards the door. He had to run. He had to find Miho. He had to protect her. And perhaps he had to do what he had long forgotten, talk to her and ask for forgiveness. He understood that Momo's curse wasn't just a threat. It was a punishment for his indifference, for the loneliness he caused, for the pain he inflicted. Akira finally realized that in this game, there were no rules, only one consequence. Either you find peace for Momo, or she takes it from you forever. Just then his phone rang. It was Miho. But instead of her voice, he only heard the sound of a child crying. The phone in Akira's hand felt incredibly heavy. Instead of Miho's voice, he heard only the wailing of a child, a sound that ripped through the silence of his apartment as if woven from pure sorrow. He wanted to scream, to ask 1,000 questions, but his own voice was caught in his throat, strangled by terror. Then the crying suddenly stopped. The familiar, hoarse croak came through the receiver, sending a shiver down his spine. Momo's voice was like the rustling of dry leaves, filled with an ancient, unfathomable malice. She is with me, she whispered. She is helping me find what was taken. My child. What did you do to her? Akira finally managed to gasp. Let her go. In response, a long, insane laugh, like the shriek of a wild bird, filled the line. Let go? Just like you let go of her? Just like you let go of me? Momo hissed. Your indifference is what binds us. You abandoned your child, your love. You can't fix it. You must pay. The line went dead. Akira redialed Miho's number again and again, but each time, he heard only a short beep indicating the number was not available. Panic hammered in his head, turning his thoughts into a chaotic mess. He couldn't just sit there. He had to find her. His gaze fell on his laptop. The image of Momo with the word Ubumē was still on the screen. Below it, in the chat, a new message had appeared that he hadn't noticed before. You know where to go. My child is waiting. Our meeting will be in silence. In the place where grief gave birth to pain. Akira frantically racked his brain, thinking of all the places he and Miho used to frequent. Parks, cafes, movie theaters, none of them fit the description of silent and where grief gave birth to pain. But then his eyes landed on an old photo on his desk where he and Miho stood next to an old, abandoned temple surrounded by dense trees. The place was called the Temple of Lost Souls, because of an old legend about a woman who had taken her own life there due to unrequited love. It was the very place Miho loved to go when she was sad, to feel less alone. He grabbed his keys and ran out of the apartment, leaving the door unlocked. He raced down the stairs, his heart pounding in his chest like a frantic drum. In the hallway, he heard a faint wailing coming from somewhere above. He looked up, and on the wall, directly across from his apartment, he saw a fresh, bloody handprint, as if something had crawled along the wall. His breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just a digital curse. It was here, in his home. Once on the street, he realized he couldn't call a taxi. All the apps on his phone were useless. The screen was completely taken over by a single image, Momo's eyes. He threw the phone away. The only way to get to the temple was to run. The Tokyo night was filled with light and people, but for Akira, it had turned into a set for his own personal nightmare. He ran, weaving through pedestrians who seemed like nothing more than indifferent shadows. Soon, he turned onto a narrow, dark street leading to the outskirts where the old temple was located. The deeper he went into this area, the stronger the feeling that he was being watched. He heard a scratching sound behind him, as if something was crawling on the asphalt, and he smelled a sweet, decaying odor, like stagnant water. Reaching the temple gates, Akira stopped to catch his breath. Behind the trees, he could see the ancient, time-blackened structures. The place was creepy, but Miho was there. He had to go in. Pushing through the rotted gates, he found himself on the main path, strewn with dry leaves. For a second, he thought he saw Miho's figure in the distance. He called her name. The figure turned, but it wasn't Miho. It was Momo. Her body was twisted at an unnatural angle, and in her long, bony arms, she held something wrapped in a blood-soaked white cloth. It wasn't a baby. It was the very doll from the legend. From behind Momo, a faint wailing could be heard. It was very close now. At that moment, Akira felt something warm and heavy press against his back. He couldn't move. His feet were rooted to the ground. He looked in terror at his shoulders. There was nothing there. But the weight was pressing down. Accept him, Momo whispered. Accept my child, Akira. You should have been my child. Her words were filled with an unbearable, all-consuming sorrow that was far more frightening than any threat. And at that moment, Akira understood. Momo didn't just want to take revenge on him. She wanted him to accept her pain, to accept her lost child. And only then might she find peace. He heard the wailing on his back intensify, and the weight became unbearable. Akira looked at Momo, who was slowly crawling towards him, her eyes filled with tears. Her face no longer held the insane smile. Only pain. He understood that she, too, was a victim. But that understanding brought him no comfort. She's waiting, Momo hissed, looking him straight in the eyes. She's waiting for you to accept her pain. Her body was twisted at an unnatural angle, and in her long, bony arms, she held something wrapped in a blood-soaked white cloth. It wasn't a baby. It was the very doll from the legend. From behind Momo, a faint wailing could be heard. It was very close now. At that moment, Akira felt something warm and heavy press against his back. He couldn't move. His feet were rooted to the ground. He looked in terror at his shoulders. There was nothing there. But the weight was pressing down. "Accept him," Momo whispered. "Accept my child, Akira. You should have been my child." Her words were filled with an unbearable, all-consuming sorrow that was far more frightening than any threat. And at that moment, Akira understood. Momo didn't just want to take revenge on him. She wanted him to accept her pain, to accept her lost child. And only then might she find peace. He heard the wailing on his back intensify, and the weight became unbearable. Akira looked at Momo, who was slowly crawling towards him, her eyes filled with tears. Her face no longer held the insane smile. Only pain. He understood that she, too, was a victim. But that understanding brought him no comfort. "She's waiting," Momo hissed, looking him straight in the eyes. "She's waiting for you to accept her pain." The next day, Akira disappeared. His apartment was found empty, and his shattered phone was never recovered. Miho, who had gone to meet a friend that night, escaped the nightmare. She would never know that she was saved only because she wasn't there. This story isn't just a work of fiction. It's a dark reflection of the ancient fears that live on in our modern world. Momo isn't just a ghost from a legend. She is a virus that seeks out the weak spots in our lives to fill them with her eternal grief. And if you ever feel alone, if your phone one day vibrates and an unfamiliar contact appears on the screen, remember that the past is not buried. It crawls. It whispers. And it waits for you. Which other Asian or Japanese spirits should we cover in this series? Drop your suggestions in the comments, and whichever one gets the most love might just crawl into the spotlight in a future episode. Thanks for watching. And remember, if you hear a strange croaking sound in the middle of the night, don't panic. It's probably just your pipes. Or maybe it isn't. Sweet dreams. I hope you enjoyed these stories. If you like them, and want to listen to more, feel free to subscribe and put on your notifications. I upload almost every day.